Welcome back to another training talk video. So this one is going to be about visualization, which is something that I just read about in my grad class. And it was something I was like, that's a good idea. And it's something that I've tried to do at different points of my athletic career, mostly in terms of baseball, less so in terms of weightlifting. And so visualization, a lot of people think it is just imagining yourself actually doing the tasks at hand, which is certainly one of the ways that you can implement it. But there's other ways that you can think about it. You can try to feel the emotions of what you're going to be experiencing. You can try, in my case, to try to feel the physical exertion of it. So you're not necessarily only working with your visual senses. You could be thinking about the sounds you might hear, the smells you might have, the kinesthetic feel of the movement. So you're thinking about how, in the case of lifting, like how the bar is going to be moving. And so the way that I implemented this, and this was just, one day of training, but it was something that I felt really good as I was training, and it was something that, or it is something that I want to continue to implement, particularly on the classics. Like on a day like this where my snatches are going to be pretty light, I'm probably not going to be worrying about it too much because it's going to be like 65 kilos or 70 kilos in the snatch. I'm not worried about that. I can do whatever I want with that weight, and spending time visualizing probably is good practice. So maybe it would be good to do a little bit, but it's not like I'm going to be really having to focus in on those. Now, the way that I implemented it yesterday with snatches and with the clean and jerks was to think about the lift as I was doing it, but not to think about visually of it, because I just kind of struggled at that, trying to like see myself lift it in my head. What I tried to visualize more was as I'm doing the clean and catching it, thinking about the feeling of the weight as I catch the stretch reflex and jump up, and then as I do the jerk and the snatch, as I'm going under in the snatch, the feeling of it being in the correct spot, the feeling of me catching it in a good spot, and trying to mentally prepare myself for how the weight is going to feel, whether it's going to be 80 kilos or in the case of yesterday up to 120 kilos, the difference of those weights, knowing, all right, this is going to feel like this because I've done it before or felt a heavy weight before. So I know, like, all right, this is what I could be feeling. Let's think about it. Let's visualize it, and then visualize the success of the end of that feeling, like doing the lift or standing up with the snatch or the jerk or whatever it happens to be. And I did that before every lift, from 40 kilos all the way up to 120 in the snatch, and from 70 up to 155 in the clean jerk. And I was really surprised with just how good it made my snatching feel, and clean jerks, frankly, both of them, because I wasn't any more recovered yesterday than I was the previous day when I had missed 120 and had missed 155 twice. I was probably less recovered because I had lifted snatch and clean and jerk relatively heavy for 3 days in a row. And so what that tells me is that focusing on the mental aspect, or trying to like center myself mentally before doing the lift, is something that I should implement as being part of my pre-lift routine. One thing that, or another thing that allowed me to do while I was training too, was to start the lift faster. So I visually went through, all right, I'm feeling the weight land on my shoulders. All right, I'm feeling it as I'm in the front rack. All right, I'm feeling it above my head on the jerk. And same with the snatch. Like I'm feeling it make contact. I'm just thinking about the exertion that I'm going to be experiencing. So kind of the kinesthetic feeling of the actual movement going around, and that feeling at different parts of the movement. So not so much thinking visually or sounds or anything, but just thinking about the exertion, if it's in the right spot, how I can do the lift, whatever that weight happens to be. And so what that allowed me to do prior to the lift was to do the lift faster, not in terms of actually the lift, but the time spent from, all right, I'm going to start the lift, or I'm going to start setting up for the lift, and then I'm actually doing the lift. I spent a lot less time doing that, which for me is not necessarily like a terrible issue that I'm worried about. I don't know if you heard a motorcycle behind me, but it is something that I am trying to improve upon, because it makes training sessions go faster, and I don't spend as much time setting up and psyching myself out of a lift, or just wasting energy with your hands on the bar and getting too tense with that. So what I realized is, because I was more relaxed and because I was more focused, I was able just to commit to the lift a lot earlier than I was prior. Now, like I said, it's only one training session, but with how good it felt on every lift, and even on clean and jerks, which normally, getting more hype for those is better, I saw yesterday that doing the same thing and really trying to visualize catching the bar, or feeling where the bar would, how it would feel if I caught it right. It's kind of hard to contextualize, but if you lift, you know what I'm talking about. So I was thinking less of, all right, I got to get it to here, to here, to here. I was thinking, all right, I'm going to do the clean, and then I'm going to feel the exertion of me having to stand up the clean, and I'm going to have it in the right spot to jump it up. Even though I double bounced the 155 yesterday, visually, or the visualization I did prior to that was saying, all right, I'm going to catch it, and it's not going to be easy. Because that's, I think, the trick that I don't want to fall into with this is I don't want to be like, all right, this is going to be 70 kilos every time I touch the bar. It's going to feel like 70 kilos because then you're going to pull it. It's going to not feel like 70 kilos, and then you're going to get psyched out as you're pulling it. So it was like a realistic visualization of like, all right, I've done 155 before. I'm going to feel it. I know it's going to feel a certain way. And if I do it well a certain way, it's just going to go up how I want it to be. The same thing with the snatch. Like I've done 120 a bunch of times. I know how it's going to feel. If I put it in the right spot, I know how it's going to feel when I catch it, and just trying to think about those, because there are some benefits to visualization. Obviously, it can help you, relax and practice the movement in your head before you actually do it. But some of the interesting things I was reading about in our book was how it could activate muscles that you're going to use during the lift. And I'm not worried about all of the specifically scientific stuff, but I'm more concerned with the fact that it allowed me to be more relaxed before I started to lift, but still exert all of the force I needed to complete the lift. Because oftentimes when I miss a snatch, it's very rarely that I'm not strong enough to do it. Clean and jerks are a different story. Sometimes I'm just not strong enough to do a certain weight. But for snatches, oftentimes I'll miss because I'll over pull it, or I'll get psyched out as I'm doing it, and then I'm too early. But what I really felt on that day was like everything was just like, all right, I know I'm going to get it to there, and I know that feeling, and I know that once it's above my head that I'm going to feel it in the correct spot. And it really worked well for, I think, really the 120 was the ugliest lift of the bunch that I did, but I was able to stabilize it, which I wasn't able to do yesterday. So it made a huge difference, and something that I would think about implementing in your pre-lift routines, because if anything, it's going to be something that's going to relax you, to allow you to focus a little bit better without getting as nervous before you lift your lift. But it can also, in my case, like I did yesterday, can be part of the pre-lift routine to allow you to kind of go through all of the checklists in your brain of, for me, it's like, all right, I got to squeeze this side of the bar, set myself, line myself up, and go. Like there's a certain routine I got to go through before my lifts. And that's an important part of, not the focus of this training talk, but that having the routines prior to your lift is important. But I would venture to say that the visualization is something I'm going to continue to implement, and probably a lot less for like strength movements. But like, I mean, if it works for the classics, I might as well do it for the other lifts as well, to really think about that. And it's something that when you have it specified, you can kind of measure if it's helping or not. Because in my case, the way that I was measuring it was to see if I was just going to start the lift in the time frame that I gave myself, or if I was going to be really nervous and sit with the bar for a while before I did the lift. And I was noticing that even with like the heaviest weights I was doing, I was committing to the lift a lot faster than I would have normally. So normally it starts out like 40 kilos, I'm just like grabbing the bar and going, and then it slowly gets slow, and then I'm like for a whole minute like standing over the bar. And I noticed that was a big improvement. So that's one way I was kind of measuring the difference of it. And I was kind of also holding myself accountable, or trying to, in the sense that if I was going to take more, once I was like all set up, like more than 3 seconds counting in my head, which is like 5 seconds in real time probably, then I wasn't allowed to do the lift. Like I had to commit to doing it, because I don't want to waste all that energy. And I think that was another thing that helped as well. Doing the mental stuff before, kind of going through what the physical feeling and the emotions of the lift are going to be prior to it, and then trying to mimic it, or trying to get that feeling to happen again. But I don't think it's necessarily something that's going to make my snatch go from 130, which it probably is about right now, is like 100% max if I really, really had to try that, to like 150 or something crazy like that. But what I think this could allow me is hopefully to be a lot more consistent. So it's something I definitely want to think about implementing, or will be implementing on future lifts, because it just made my lifting more efficient in general. Like I just trained faster, and I didn't waste as much time, which is good. So something to think about with your training. So visualization, there's a myriad of things that you could look up, but that's really just how I implemented it. It was before I was on the bar, so I would just stand and just close my eyes for a second, and then think about the emotions, or think about the feelings that I was going to feel as I did the lift, and then do my normal setup and commit to the lift. And so that's something that I would think about doing. And there's, like I said, there's a myriad ways that you can implement this in different ways. And you could think about this like on a day where you're not training. You can go through a training session in your head. There's a lot of stuff that you can do, but I kind of look for the stuff that I can implement like that day, and into my training immediately and not have to like add extra stuff that I need to do on top of whatever I do in normal training. And I felt like that yesterday really added to it and hopefully will improve it in the future, but we'll see. But that's going to be it for this training talk. So the next video that you see will be the training session where I use these visualization technique or what I talked about in this video and had a really good training session. So hopefully you stick around for that one. But if you made it this far in the video, I appreciate it. I'll talk to you all in the next one. Have a great day. Peace.